In November 1941, the Blitz was over, but remained an all-too-fresh memory for Britons. After enduring 8 months of bombing which ended late the previous spring, and with Hitler's army controlling the continent of Europe and advancing on Moscow, England was ready for some sunny escapist entertainment. It was then that BBC radio broadcaster Roy Plomley had a flash of inspiration, a program titled Desert Island Discs. The concept was simple: bring on guests who chose 8 records to take to their desert island, play them, and talk about these favorite songs and what went into choosing them for this fantasy trip, far away from bombs and fascist war machines. It remains the longest-running interview show in radio's history, and the concept is a recurring conversation piece with music fans the world over. You may have had these desert island conversations too. I certainly have, even going as far as to produce a music roundtable about it on my former music talk show What It Is, not once, but twice. The hypothesis shines light on each participant's personality because it's an exercise in not just picking favorite music, but also presenting that to the world as a kind of calling card. Inevitably, though, I think that everyone who took this metaphorical small batch of music to their faraway island would tire of it in reality sooner or later. At least I would. And I think Tami Neilson surely would, even considering that she literally moved from her native Canada to one of the most isolated faraway islands in the world, New Zealand.
You know, when people say, oh, you're singing all these, pick one genre, pick one lane. To me, it's music. Music is the lane, and life would be so boring if we had to just pick one. And I'm the kind of artist that, I'm independent. I don't have to be restricted like people who might be signed to a big label or, a very specific thing that they're needing to achieve. I kind of love that I have that freedom to just sing what I love. And the audience goes along with me,
Tami Neilson is often called a country music artist, but as she just described, her musical well goes much deeper than that. Her lyrics reveal a spirit of defying stereotypes too, especially the patriarchal kind, like in the song you're hearing now, Baby You're a Gun, from her 2022 album Kingmaker. I spoke with Tami Neilson after her debut performance at MerleFest in late April 2025, where she talked about her love of wide-ranging musical journeys, her own journey to her adopted country of New Zealand, growing up in a family band and now bringing her sons on stage from time to time, playing the Grand Ole Opry and making music with greats like Willie Nelson, and a whole lot more. I'm your host, Joe Kendrick, welcoming you to our episode on Tami Neilson on Southern Songs and Stories. Southern Songs and Stories is a proud part of the lineup at both Public Radio WNCW and Osiris Media, the leading storyteller in music. Follow Southern Songs and Stories wherever you follow podcasts, with more at southernsongsandstories.com. You can engage with us on social media. Southern Songs and Stories is on Facebook at Southern Songs and Stories, on Instagram at South Stories, and my YouTube channel is Joe Kendrick NC. Let's get at the aesthetic of Tami Neilson, and I'm trying to wrap my head around all of the sounds that go into your music. And there's, say, Bessie Smith and Brenda Lee and Etta James and Patsy Cline, and you're at a place where it sounds like a lot of these things diverged. Like rockabilly and blues and country diverged at one point, but it sounds to me like you've brought them back together.
Yeah, well, people always say, oh, you sing so many different genres. And I say, no, like all these genres are family. They all come from the same place. They all come from the South. They all come from here. And the only thing that, these genres were segregated, just like the people of the South were segregated. And blues and soul and country and rockabilly are all brothers and sisters. They're all from the same family. They all grew up in the same town. And it's the industry, it's the music industry, and at the time, racism, segregation, that had to divide it up, felt the need to divide it up and make it consumer friendly. And this is for white people, this is for black people, this is for people who like country music, this is for people who like just this, and when you listen to all forms of those styles particularly, they all bleed into one another. You're painting with the same palette. Sometimes some songs are a little bit more of one color and the others a different color, but they're all in the same family, the same palette. So to me, I don't see them as being such a huge difference in genre. When people say, oh, you're singing all these, pick one genre, pick one lane. To me, it's music. Music is the lane, and like what, life would be so boring if we had to just pick one. And I'm the kind of artist that, I'm independent. I don't have to be restricted like people who might be signed to a big label or, a very specific thing that they're needing to achieve. I kind of love that I have that freedom to just sing what I love. And the audience goes along with me, and people are... It's now a time that people have playlists. They consume music in a way where they're making their own playlists, or they're listening to streaming, or, they're not often listening to a full album anymore. So I think people are intelligent enough to go, that's okay, I can go on this journey with you. I've always loved soundtracks for movies and film, and listening to those, it's taking you on a journey from the beginning to the end. And when I'm on a journey, I want different flavors. I want different moods. I want different sounds, and I don't want the same thing every time. So that's what a journey is kind of that varying terrain, And so I guess that's kind of how I see music, is creating a journey for the audience to follow along.
Yeah. Well, at the same time that you're combining all of these elements, your sound is unique, and it is something that you don't hear a lot of what you're doing. You've got, that big, powerful voice, a fairly broad repertoire, and it comes across as kind of unclassifiable, which I love that. Again, getting at the aesthetic and the sort of like existing outside the lines.
I like that. And I guess for me, as a listener, as a fan of music, I love all different kinds. And when I hear kind of a few songs of an artist, I'm like, okay, it's time to switch it up, And I feel like if I'm getting bored on stage, then the audience is going to get bored. If I'm excited and enjoying this journey and different flavors and different colors, different sounds, then it's hopefully also shining through and exciting the audience as well.
What sort of country scene exists in New Zealand? What's your music scene like?
New Zealand is, as you would guess, very isolated from the rest of the world. And I think that is part of why I feel so much freedom with the music to just sing whatever I want. It has because New Zealand's kind of this little, 2 islands at the bottom of the world next to Australia. They have a very DIY, do-it-yourself attitude with everything. Because if you want something done, you got to create it yourself. There's nothing close by. There's just ocean for miles and miles and miles. The closest place you can fly to is 3 or 4 hours away. So if you want to create something, you got to do it yourself. And I think also because you're not in a place where, here there's musical hubs, you've got LA, you've got New York, you've got Nashville. They're very distinct industries with distinct sounds. And when you're in towns like that and everybody's writing and everybody's kind of chasing the next hit, it can start to sound similar. Things can start, even not intentionally, by kind of osmosis. You soak up the creative ether that's around you, and there isn't any of that in New Zealand because we're so damn far away from everybody else. And I think that's what makes it so refreshing and free and unique. Obviously there's the drawbacks. When I moved over there, I'm originally from Canada, and when I moved over there to marry my husband, I had people going, "Oh, you're committing career suicide." People leave there to come here to make it. And I thought, well, that just means I can make my mark faster.
Well, I'm glad you've made it work for you in your career. And how is that? Well, how is, say, getting into America nowadays? Is that any more difficult for you? What's it really like getting over here and doing what you do on just like on the ground? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, just as you know, logistically, the distance alone is an obstacle, and it's something you have to be really intentional and plan. And it's a lot of hard work. Getting a work visa in the States, that very costly, a lot of time, and a lot of investment, a lot of sacrifice being away from my family when I'm touring over here. So I tend to choose things that are heart gigs. I'm like, well, it might not be a lot of money, but it's something that's going to either open opportunities or build my audience, because it's definitely not a money-making scheme when you're coming from that far away. But I'm here. I'm touring twice a year this year. 2 times this year, because I've got a new album coming out, and I've just done a 3-week run, and then I'll do another 3-week run in June and July. But so some people might go, "Oh, that's not enough time. You need to be here. You need to be on the ground." But, when you're touring with Willie Nelson for 2 weeks, and then you're playing the Grand Ole Opry, and then you're playing MerleFest, and then, the next one I'm doing the Outlaw Festival with Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson, and playing the Opry again. So these are gigs that, my dad always said, work smarter, not harder. And when you're coming from that far away and, you've got a young family, you have to be really smart about what you choose to do. And it's taken like 15 years to get to these opportunities. And yeah, it's definitely an investment and a sacrifice. Not only I have to make, my husband, my kids, we all kind of have to be on board with each of these opportunities that come. I was lucky enough, year before last, I'd said to my husband, I've always wanted my boys to experience living over here, even if it's for 6 months, not just a little 2-week visit every 5 years to see their cousins in Canada. And I said, I want them to really know and take ownership of like their Canadian and their North American heritage. And I mean, I grew up just as much in the States as I did in Canada, because I was in a touring, traveling family band. And we did 6 months in a motorhome from coast to coast and back again, and toured and played shows all along the way. And the most beautiful music to my ears was at the end of that trip. My boys were talking to their friends when they came home, and they were saying, "Oh, well, I'm half Canadian."
There's a great long history of underground artists coming from New Zealand, and I have a background in college radio and underground indie kind of music. So when I was coming of age, it was everything on Flying Nun and bands like the Chills. There are tons of bands we could just rattle off talking about New Zealand bands that are near and dear to my heart. And
Well, see, this is the beautiful thing about New Zealand. I just guested on the Chills' final album. Martin was a dear friend, bless him, and we miss him so much in our industry. We just lost him last year.
Yeah.
And he was recording his final swan song, and it just came out a couple months ago, and we were great friends, and it's with all different artists that he loves, and that is such it kind of is like the snapshot of New Zealand music. You know, I'm considered a country artist. He's this like prog rock, flying nun, indie, underground guy. But everybody just is like, who cares? There's no rules. Like, we can color outside all the lines. And yeah, so much amazing, unique music comes out of New Zealand.
First I met her, and I fell for her, and I was happy, but then she left me, so now I've got to learn to try again, I've got to learn to try again, got to learn to try again, got to learn to try again. There were others I know, and I can't take that, 'cause you know I'm too selfish, I'm just too selfish, so now I've got to learn to try again.
That's a bit of the Chills, with Tami Neilson singing background vocals on Learn to Try Again, from Springboard, the early unrecorded songs. Martin Phillips fronted the Chills beginning with their formation in 1980, and we lost him in late July 2024. This posthumous 20-song collection is available on Fire Records and the Chills Bandcamp page. Speaking of New Zealand bands and their habit of punching above their weight, our new intern Elena Dixon immediately latched on to Tami Neilson's comment about its isolation and ensuing feeling of freedom and pointed out that this lack of expectations can lead directly to the kind of musical diversity that Tami's catalog embodies. Indeed. Coming up, Tami Neilson talks about her 11th studio album, which includes this collaboration with Ashley McBryde, Grace Bowers, and Shelley Fairchild. The song Borrow My Boots. Well, let's talk about the new album. What's coming out and what wrinkle is going to be uncovered? What's new with this record?
Well, the album's called Neon Cowgirl, and it was very much the seeds of the song were kind of collected on this journey across North America with my family in our motorhome for 6 months. So it's little sprinkles of, you know, everything from Graceland to Nashville to the desert, you know, just all the stories kind of gathered along the way, but has some incredible collaborations beyond my wildest dreams. So I got to write and collaborate with Ashley McBryde, who our single in May is one with her, and Grace Bowers, Shelley Fairchild. So, you know, that was just wild. And then did a collaboration and wrote a song with the Secret Sisters, and then the title track Neon Cowgirl, kind of taking it back to New Zealand. Neil Finn of Crowded House sings that one with me. So it's just, yeah, it's kind of become this beautiful collaboration and celebration of, like, I don't know, a journey of like a long career of resilience and pushing through and keep chasing that neon cowgirl, which to me is Nashville and country music. And yeah, just a testament to not giving up. And I'm a 47-year-old mother of 2 at the bottom of the world, and on paper, that makes no sense in the music business. But I think it's just a testament, like, you don't give up. There's no expiry date on your dreams. And it's kind of crazy when you've been tilling this dry ass soil your whole life, and then these little green sprouts start coming up, like Willie Nelson and the Opry and Bob Dylan and collaborations with some of your heroes. So keep trucking. Don't give up.
In the radio world, we see records come out with co-writes or guest vocalists and things, and it's always a mystery as to, like, well, how does someone come into working with Ashley McBryde? I have no clue, but it's interesting to see it happen over and over. So it seems that you are definitely at a level where you're in the collaboration, in the guest artist world. That's a different level than starting out with just your band and doing your thing.
Which, I was at that, starting out and playing to 12 people for a decade. And it's, like I said, you're tilling that dry ass soil, but, and not giving up. But, I remember James Taylor saying that there are these, like, portals, moments in your career where, like, you're standing on one side of the curtain and then all of a sudden someone opens that curtain and pulls you through. And he said for him, it was the Beatles. They gave him a chance, pulled him through. They loved his work before he was famous and signed him to, I think it was either Parlophone or Apple, their label at the time. And he said it was like someone pulling you through that portal and it changes everything. And for me, Willie is definitely one of those people that did that. I've always been a tortoise artist. I've never been a hare. Nothing's ever come fast or easy. And to have someone of that profile kind of pull you through and go, you can hop along with me for a little while. And you get that much farther in such a short amount of time after decades of being that tortoise, taking one foot in front of the other. And so, working with Willie, and then that opened up being asked to do this show at the Ryman that was part of a Patsy Cline tribute for PBS. And on that lineup was Wynonna Judd and Ashley McBryde, and the people who booked the Opry were in the audience. And that led to me working with Ashley, and it led to me debuting on the Opry. And so all these little steps end up taking you on this journey, and it can be little tortoise steps, but they're still steps.
Yeah, it's great to think about an artist like James Taylor as being inevitable. Like, obviously we were going to have James Taylor, but maybe not so much because he was raw. And in the period when, there in the early 70s, he had done that movie Two Lane Blacktop, and before he was really known as a music artist at all. And he had his own problems, which he got straightened out, but him getting that open door, that is the thing. And you've had that open door too. So it's wonderful to watch, to see that sort of camaraderie, that sort of kinship amongst artists, that once you become, say, on stage at Grand Ole Opry and you have opened up for Willie Nelson, you're just like family, right? It's kind of hard to imagine that as a fan a lot of times.
It's hard to imagine it even when you're up there.
Yeah, how much hanging out is there in an opening up for Willie or being on an Outlaw Country? Like, are you just like, hi, Bob, or what is this like?
Yeah, I have not yet toured with Bob, and I think he's notoriously private, and I don't think anyone really hangs out with Bob Dylan. I think he's a bit of a, keeps to himself after many years of well-earned privacy. But, and Willie, like the first time I got to come over and I did a duet with Willie on my album, but it was during lockdown and COVID, and so we didn't get to meet in person until 2022. And it was the month that the single was coming out. I was booked to play at Luck Reunion on his ranch in Texas. And I'll never forget, like, just, it was wild to be asked, like, you know, his wife Annie said, come on up to the house and he wants to have a little rehearsal before tomorrow when we do the song at the festival. And like walking into his kitchen and he had on sweatpants and a t-shirt tucked in, like the most normal granddad, you know? And I'm like, he's just a lovely man. And kind of realizing, I mean, Willie is a different breed, you know, a celebrity that is the most anti-celebrity you'll ever meet. He's the most down-to-earth person. And you kind of forget that he is this global legendary, you know,
treasure.
When you're in his presence, he's just such a warm, kind, lovely person. And I think that the people who are at that level often are. There's no ego. There's no chip on the shoulder, because they're so secure in who they are and what they've done. And James Taylor was the same, you know, just very like, came up to me and he's like, oh, hi there. My, your name's, and I said, I'm Tami. He's like, I'm James. I'm like, James who? He's like, Taylor. I'm like, I know who you are. But like, just humble and kind people. But it kind of short circuits your brain a little bit when you're in these situations. Yeah.
Awesome.
Here in my heart, we will never depart, darling, we will fly. Beyond the stars, can you hear the guitars? They are calling you up to be with me. Beyond the velvet sky, darling, will you and I dance to the beat of our hearts? To the place where I can believe that you will never leave me all alone in the dark. Take me away to the place you are beyond the stars. Take me away to the place you are beyond the stars.
The ever-prolific red-headed stranger Willie Nelson joining Tami Neilson on her song Beyond the Stars from her 2022 album Kingmaker. While I was at MerleFest, a friend that knew about my then upcoming interview told me to make sure to ask about Tami Neilson's work on a New Zealand TV series, which I had yet to come across. It turns out that her involvement with that show was more than I anticipated.
Yeah, well, the Brokenwood Mysteries is this little New Zealand-made drama, and it's a murder mystery show. And it's kind of hard to describe because it's quirky and it's cute. Even though it's murder, it's quite... It's like the Midsummer Murders, you know, in the UK, like quite quaint and charming. And it's the little show that could, you know, it is more popular around the globe than even within New Zealand. It's just taken off around the world. They've been using my music from day one. And my brother Jay and I actually scored the second season. We did the whole score as well as had our songs in it. And it's just become the little show that could. And it's now in its 11th season. And without fail, every show I do anywhere in the world, I get people coming up to me afterward and saying, we discovered your music on Brokenwood Mysteries. And I've been lucky enough to do 2 cameos on it now. In I think it was like season 5 and season 10, where I just play myself singing in like the pub, you know. It's quite cute. But it's really special to be a part of. And my latest single, my first single from my new album is called You're Gonna Fall. And I wrote it specifically for Brokenwood, kind of as, you know, it sounded, there's two characters, the detective and the lady who works in, she's the one that, what's the name of it when they're the ones that like examine the bodies and figure out what went wrong.
Okay.
Not a mortician, but yeah, anyway, she's got this obsession with the detective and he's not interested. And so the song was kind of like saying, you're going to fall for me, you know?
Right.
And I sent it to them and they said, oh, we're going to write this whole episode around it. I haven't yet seen it. It's airing, I think, next month. It's the season finale. And so I haven't seen what they've written about it. I know they're using the song. And then I ended up recording it as a duet with J.D. McPherson, who is one of my favorite artists. And it was not supposed to be on the album at all. And then I just kind of fell in love with it and went, actually, I know it's on Brokenwood, but I really like this song. And so it ended up being the first single on the album. Yeah.
Bringing our episode to a close with You're Gonna Fall by Tami Neilson, with help from J.D. McPherson. Thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed getting to spend some time with Tami and her music. You can check out over 150 episodes of Southern Songs and Stories anytime for free, anywhere you find podcasts, and on my website, southernsongsandstories.com, where there are many more articles and photos to go along with these episodes. That's where you can also check out my previous music projects, Lingua Musica and the aforementioned What It Is. You can follow us on social media, at South Stories on Instagram, at Southern Songs and Stories on Facebook, and now on Substack, where you can read the scripts of these podcasts and get updates on what we're doing and planning in our quest to explore and celebrate the unfolding history and culture of music rooted in the American South and going beyond to the styles and artists that it inspired and informed. This series is a part of the lineup of both Public Radio WNCW and Osiris Media, with all the Osiris shows available at osirispod.com. You can also hear new episodes on Bluegrass Planet Radio at bluegrassplanetradio.com. Thanks to Jacqueline Anthony for producing the radio adaptations of this series on Public Radio WNCW, where we worked with Joshua Ming, who wrote and performed our theme songs. And now, Elena Dixon. I'm your host and producer, Joe Kendrick, and this is Southern Songs and Stories, the music of the South and the artists who make it.